Our goal hasn't changed since 2009. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Welcome to Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm on the main stage at the Atrium, and I'm here with the creators of Close Your Legs, Honey, which is a musical that will be making its debut at Fringe Arts this season. It's been crazy Fringe for me personally, but now we're into the swing of it. So I'm here with the creators, and I'll have them introduce themselves.
Great. So I'm Shamus McCarty, co-creator and director.
I'm Hannah Parke. I am co-creator and also playing Honey.
All right, and welcome to Rep Radio.
Thank you.
All right, so tell us about Close Your Legs, Honey.
Great. So, like you said, Close Your Legs, Honey is running in the Fringe Festival through a partnership with Philly Improv Theater here at the Adrian. About 2 years ago, Hannah and I were doing a touring show together, so we spent a lot of time in the car talking about the work that spoke to us in a way that was different than what we were currently seeing and doing. So that began as a one-person show that featured Hannah that was about our mutual experience with disordered eating and food restriction, and that evolved slowly and surely, and we just sort of added the various characters from this original world that was essentially a backyard barbecue in the South called Puberty Pool Party. And from there, from there we developed a mother character and the supporting people in this world. And here we are today with Close Your Legs, Honey, a new musical.
Yeah.
Is this your first foray into creating work?
I think, I went to the University of the Arts, which really pushes you to create new work and devise new work. But this was the first time I worked on creating a new musical. My voice just came out. A new musical. So that's been a challenge, but also a treat as we've really been doing it, kind of understanding how the score and the book interweave, and that's been really interesting.
Yeah, I've done a decent amount of device work realistically in Philadelphia, particularly for the Fringe Festival. I worked a lot at some of the bigger, the Fringe staples that are devising work. But this is the first time I've been in charge of one of them, from in all facets, both creation, direction, and producing. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a new experience. We've learned a lot about the difficulty that it is trying to do all of those things, or even one of those things on, a shoestring budget and with a lot of passion.
Yeah. I definitely know, in starting my own company, it just made me nervous to think about the musicals that I really wanted to produce, but I just thought that they were just so much more involved. It was like, oh my God, I have 2 directors?
Oh, sure.
And got all this wrangling and scheduling. Technically, this is 2 shows that you're, as a producer, you're kind of putting together 2 pieces and merging them into one. But in terms of the rehearsal and getting all the people available, I was just like, this will be a dream. I'll I'll keep it on the back burner. Yeah. But so talk about the origins, when you started getting people involved, and how all the pieces, all the elements that make this up came together.
Sure, yeah. So over basically 2 years of development, from initial conversations to this public showing of the full piece, we've had 2 artists that have been a part of pretty much the entire process, and they're Catherine Perry and Jenna Kersey, and they are both in the show, but they are also both in multiple other projects for Fringe, because it's Fringe time.
That's how Fringe is.
Exactly. So because, this is a new musical, and it's not, we're not meeting certain we're not paying a realistic living, working wage for a week of work for these people. We've been very flexible, and so that's added a whole other level to our scheduling because we do simultaneous rehearsals with our understudies at times, meaning they watch or they like participate to the side of it, and then sometimes we just switch people out. So on days that we don't have Jenna, we have our swing in place for her. On days we don't have Catherine, we have Ebony Pullum, who is the mama cover coming in on various days. So it's certainly a lot to work with just for actor schedules.
Yeah.
And then we have 3 different types of rehearsal, right? So we have music rehearsals, which are led by Damien Figueres, who's our music director and orchestrator. And I usually just let him do what he wants because he knows far more about that than I do. We have choreography rehearsals, which is what today was just cleaning and setting material. And then we have like full staging rehearsals where we do scenes and runs.
Yeah. So why a musical?
You know,
not that there's anything wrong with a musical.
Yeah.
I'm excited that it is a musical, but whenever I have like a story idea, I sort of write it down in my notes and I kind of leave it alone, and I'm like, I'll get back to it because I fully fleshed out that idea. But thinking about the elements of adding the musical element to it just seems like so much to do.
I think the show revolves obviously around Honey, and she's 11, and we see her imaginative side, we see what's going on in her head, and then we see what's going on in reality. She also, not to spoil too much, there's a whole idea that she's been given hee-haw juice, which is what people do in like toddlers and tiaras, and they're giving them caffeine and assortment of things in there that pump them up. So we kind of see Honey in the world, in her mind, and then in reality. And I think that's something that musicals do inherently, is that they kind of show what's going on in real life, and then they show what the character is really feeling. And I think that musicals allow that to happen without it seeming corny, that you would be able to share that without it being... Also, the content of the show is pretty dark. And we realized that as we moved on, the musical almost helped it be more
light.
And digestible.
Without it being like,
what a dark reality we live in. So like finding the light in those or the humor in those has definitely been a big part of it. It's always been a musical in some form to us, which is the thing. So even when it was a one-person show, our musical elements were in these puppets that came in and like gave advice and critique to our heroine's body in that version of it. And so that's something that I think that, like, the fantasy of it, like Hannah said, is something that we tried to maintain. And because we know so many brilliant singers.
We do know a lot of singers.
I was looking at the list, and I said, well, you don't have it's not like you had to chase around to find some capable talent.
Not a stinker in the bunch, for sure. And because Catherine and Jenna were such instrumental parts of the development of it, and because Hannah is such an accomplished singer, that was always something in play. So through the various stages of development, we've presented it with various like takes on songs. The first version of Close Your Legs, Honey that we showed publicly that had a song in it was an ABBA cover where we changed Dancing Queen to Pageant Queen.
Like a parody musical.
It was basically just a parody musical to start. And then from there it became a play with routines. So we had there were like words and movements to things, but I wouldn't say like full-on musical. Like
cheerleading chants almost, where there was no music behind it, but there's that rhythm of, oh my gosh, you are so crazy, and kind of that.
Yeah, and so it was after a showing with those routines that actually Matthew Mastronardi, who is credited with additional music on our project.
Who's that? He sounds interesting.
He's great. Matthew Mastronardi, what a star. Currently teaching musical theater in China, so he's internationally acclaimed, as far as I know. So Matt came in and said, it feels like a musical. And we said, yeah, we think it is. And he said, I want to help write the music for this musical. And that was like a big instrumental step because we had gotten to a point of deciding that we were going to do it in Fringe in some form. We weren't sure if that was going to be a workshop or a full anything. And then when we added Matt into the fold and then Damien, it really became, it was like, oh no, music is a driving force of this piece. And that's... Yeah, I'm not sure if Matt, honestly, when Matt first joined us, I think he thought he would write music for those like routines we'd created before, and in reality, we were like, great, we have 20 other ideas. Let's do all of them. And so we plunked out and sung around, and I sang off key in the living room for days and days. So thank you to Matt's roommates for housing us. And then...
Did you record any of that? Because that would be good.
We had ample footage of that.
That would be good to tease out.
We had to delete a lot of it. I was constantly having to delete footage.
We would rehearse music for 4 or 5 hours in a row, and just kooky things would come out.
You
But
get real
that's
loopy.
yeah, and that's kind of good for the show. You know, we started to not judge ourselves on lyrics and be like, you know what, this is absolutely within the world. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Matt also added a really nice element of parody to it. Matt has a very broad and deep, actually, sense of musical theater, and so there were a lot of opportunities because of that to be like, oh, we're thinking it kind of feels like this song.
I'm so popular.
That very song. So in these settings of feeling like, oh, you know, we'd like the vibe of this song from the 90s or this piece of musical theater, and Matt's knowledge allowed him to be like, okay, great, so if it's really this, what if we do it this way with a little zhuzh or, you know, add a flourish and those types of things. So we hope when you see it, you catch some of those, right? They're meant to be very intentional and not just like, oh, we vaguely stole this. It's like very clearly we're trying to send things up.
Cool.
So
there's some good foundational elements laid in there.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't thought about it, if you don't have some form of hee-haw juice at concessions.
Oh, yeah.
We got
We got it.
Darnell, if I've learned anything during this process, it's that we got to monetize.
Oh, yeah.
God knows, you know, it's the arts. Nobody's making any money on a new musical.
Yeah. I will say, artists in general, but specifically has been paying attention to the evolution of this piece. We've been getting really clever about promotion and sort of teasing, and I think in the age of social media, it's been allowing us to do that. So just teasing bits and pieces out, and I know you've got an Instagram takeover coming up.
Yep.
And you know, to kind of support your crowdfunding campaign and everything. How many songs are in the piece altogether?
10.
I've written 10 in a bunch of copy, like in press releases, and I think that's still true.
We just work on them so much.
Right. All right. I mean, so we got Karate Baker Knot, we got Glory Ghost,
which comes in several
right?
times.
We got lots of versions of Glory
It Could
Ghost.
Be You.
It Could Be You. Daddy Mama Honey.
Dolly's song,
Dolly Says.
which happens a
Dolly
couple
Says
times.
Reprise.
Turn Me.
Turn Me.
Let It Out.
Won't Be Your Dolls.
Won't Be Your Dolls.
Mama Don't Know. At least 10.
At
We just
least.
got to 10, so it's at least 10 original songs.
Yeah.
And we might get one of those to put on.
Oh, we got
on the
plenty. We'll give you
Oh,
samples
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this started out as a one-person piece, and now it's an ensemble. So talk about the cast and the crew that make it up now.
Well, to start, you know, they're all pageant queens. They're pageant princesses, you know, so that's the big change. You know, that's how we went from one person to ensemble, was that all of the little girls began as part of the show.
Yeah, so I think we have an incredible group of people working on this show, really. Like, to the point that I am flabbergasted and constantly I express so much more gratitude, I think, than I ever have on another show to them, simply because they're doing such high-level work in a very condensed time, and they're doing it brilliantly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as, like, the actual... We have people that have worked all over. You know, we have Walnut Street actors, we have media theater actors, like, really big names in musical theater, regionally. And I mean, as far as them, they come from very different backgrounds. Clarice, who plays kind of our like queen bee among the pageant girls, had a K-pop dance background. She was in a K-pop cover troupe, right? So like, there's very different sets of skills. We have Colleen Murphy is she's a hilarious clown who plays everything as sweet as can be, but she's like a big musical theater person in town. We've recently Barrymore nominated Ebony Pullum. Congrats, Ebony, in our show. Yeah, I mean, so it's like really,
I love that.
We have a really accomplished group of people considering the scale of this project, I think.
I also think that people were drawn to audition because it's a new musical, which doesn't happen often, especially in Philadelphia, and it's not just a revival of Carousel or another Next to Normal, fifth time in New York City. So it's kind of, I think that's what people are, why they're willing to do it for not a whole lot of pay and not a whole lot of time, is that it's just like, what can we do to the musical now? Which is why it's kind of like a laugh, you're doing a musical, because it's different, and we're kind of, I feel like, trying to change it up.
Yeah, I would also say historically in Philadelphia, to my knowledge, because I would not claim to know every new musical that's like been workshopped in Philadelphia, but it seems like at the bigger theaters, they're often historically based and white male driven, and that's something we're very cognizant of. And our cast has no white men in it, to my knowledge, unless I don't. Yeah. And so I think it was like creating space and access and opportunity for artists that we like not knew in the sense that like we picked these individual people ahead of time, but like knowing the talent pool that we're familiar with and how strong it is, particularly in the female and non-binary world, was a big part of our desire to create something that was female driven.
Yeah. So you've been working on this for 2 years. Did you ever get to were there ever any points where you were just like, are we just playing around? Is this like should we just kind of put this down, or is this steering us towards something else, or were you always every time you thought about this, was it constantly giving you ideas on how to really build this out?
Yeah. I mean, so I think that we gave ourselves a lot of public deadlines, which was really smart.
Yes.
Like, if I was to give any advice to someone who's trying to do something similar, give yourself public showing, like, submit for showings. We did Scratch Night. We showed with a group called Super Object, and then we did something as Philly Theater Week, and those were our 3 big public events. And then we did Close Your Legs, Honey in concert after that, once we had, like, written the songs.
We've showed it to other producers. We've showed it, even living room readings. We're like, we need to have another reading in September or whatever, and make ourselves work on it.
Yeah, so that accountability forced us to keep working, even in the times that we were too busy or didn't want to. You know what I mean? Or like stressed out and working on other things. I think that for me, there was a definite moment where we looked at each other and were like, are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like, are we really going forward with this, or is this just been something that we were like, okay, neat, and then maybe someday later we'll like do something with some of these ideas.
Yeah.
But we committed to doing the Fringe Festival at the beginning of the year, end of last year, realistically. And so from then, it was just like, now we have lots of deadlines.
Yeah.
No time to think about what if this is, I don't know, not working, or if it's worthwhile. I mean, actually, I don't know if that's true. I still think about that personally. Like, this show is not for everyone, right?
No.
I think that's an important thing to know about your work.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious about reactions, just because I think there's some people that will be like, oh, what a vanity piece for these people. Like, oh, great, didn't we show off how beautiful Hannah sings with her cool belty power notes? Because Hannah has a very specific type of voice that's also very popular in musical theater right now. And so I think that's, like, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that response from some people, but I think that we've pushed forward because we believe in the story.
Yeah.
And we believe in Honey's journey through her pageant.
Yeah, I think people often ask, like, why are you doing this show? And I think, like, what about the content do you want to share? And I think that there's a time in, a young woman's life in which everyone has, in that you hit puberty, and it's a time that we don't talk about, and people feel ashamed of it, they're confused by it, they're pushed from being a child to a woman very quickly. You go from being able to sit with your legs wide open to being told to close your legs. And it's the first time, and I think that everyone has some time that changed for them, and it's that scary. And I think that's truly what Honey is going through, is that taboo topic, and it lives within that. And I think that's kind of why it's time for it to
and like what it means to live publicly. We live so publicly now through social media and everything else. Everyone knows that. I don't have to explain that. But what it means to have something happen very publicly that is a major shift in your body and therefore outlook on life in a time when people wouldn't talk to you about it, for sure.
Yeah.
And even though we've seen so many, it felt like in the 80s, like every child star was just destined to be ruined because, it was sort of like that no one really knew how to actually foster a child's talent, and they just sort of drop them into adult very quickly, and then they come out on the other end sort of broken and damaged. And now we're still kind of doing it, but we are aware. But we're thinking now, it's like, well, I know there was a time where I was saying, like, oh my God, she's 16 and she's blowing up right now. What have I done with my life?
Sure.
Here I am 18 saying, like, I can't quite figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And, you had you have these young stars that were, like, thrust into the spotlight. And then there's tons of people who are just like, we have to figure out how to continue to make money off of this person.
Yes.
And not really concerned about, oh, by the way, tell me where babies come from,
Yeah.
or like how
Right.
do I deal with a relationship, or how do I manage a work-life balance, and all that.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
just
God forbid.
have a bunch of people who just pull up in cars to like kind of take you places.
I think that too, talking about, it's always been push that child, the star, push, push, push. And, we have Judy Garland, who is a big showing of that. But then we also have Demi Lovato, and how that's years and years and years apart. The same situation. These child stars who are disturbingly talented in their own ways, or parents who are just pushing, pushing, pushing. And then to what extent? What's the payoff and what's not the payoff?
Yeah.
And I think something in that vein, with it being a generational thing in some ways, right? It's like, is it changing? I don't know. That's a fair question to ask. But our play or our musical is set in the 90s, very purposefully, because I don't think that as a child I had a sense that was a thing that people were talking about. And I think that that's an important, like the sensibility of these people in our play is not a 2018 sensibility. It's a 1997 sensibility, which adds to the humor for me at a lot of times, because you get to laugh at like, oh man, we were ignorant 20 years ago, in the same way that right now, so because it's in the 90s, we looked at a lot of 90s movies for like inspiration, like things that were happening, and they're all a problem now. All of these movies that I remember loving as a child that were like probably a little bit too old for me when I actually watched them are full of terrible, hateful language that you can't put in a movie now. You know what I mean? And like as a gay person, it's like I'm amazed by the amount of times that F word is thrown into these movies very casually. And I'm like, oh, right. And as a child, I internalized that as my own shame and badness.
Oh, let's think about like Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, sure.
Back to the shower.
Yeah.
Back to the shower. Or even the Brat Pack movies.
Oh,
like 16 Candles. Like,
oh, sure.
Oh, sexy girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like he was like that was. We classify that as rapey now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Revenge of the Nerds is literally one of the biggest payoffs for it is a rape. Right? The man, the lead nerd, has unconsensual sex with the head of the sorority under the guise that he's actually her boyfriend. That's rape.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's something... I think that those pop culture moments are an interesting part of the difference in sensibility between us and people, 10 years older than us or 20 years older than us. And that's definitely...
So... I think because you said it in the 90s, it kind of allows you to not necessarily be too concerned or too concerned about what's going on right now, because I feel like last season when I spoke to many artists, they were saying how we walked into rehearsal the day after the election, or we walked into rehearsal right after the Me Too movement like kicked off, and all these things that were like framing how they were going to approach the work moving forward now. And in this case, we're like, no, none of this has happened yet.
Right.
So we can kind of look at it and kind of be as dark as it was then, and then you can save what's going on today when you walk out of the theater. So you don't necessarily have to be sitting in the theater saying like, oh, this is not necessary for 2018.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely brings up. I definitely have questions, right? And I think an audience will tell us a lot. Just given like the nature of what is PC, right, and what is triggering for people, right?
Yeah.
We have a very we have drafted a pretty exhaustive list of like everything in the show that we think could potentially be triggering, just because that's where we are at in society now, which I think is great in a lot of ways. But it definitely brings in questions, right? As far as like if we put it in the 90s, it's not. I think that we've made a point to not revert to a place of popular culture that is openly ignorant for contemporary standards.
Yeah.
But we definitely touch on like potentially triggering issues, including like food restriction or mistreatment of a child in darkly comic ways.
Yep.
Yeah. So talk about some of the previewing opportunities that you've had throughout, because you're working on it at the same time you're presenting it, sort of, in these teasing fashions, which I guess is kind of helps you generate a buzz, but also helps you fine tune these parts that you kind of have locked.
Yeah, well,
at least get a feel for what how an audience would respond to what you've been doing so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, we did not, and one of the earlier things, we did it for a company and did not get great review on it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it really pushed us to be like, we need to pick what we're doing and stick with it. Because I think we were kind of doing some like wishy-washy in between stuff. It's back when it was kind of like a parody musical. Mm-hmm. And so getting that was like, all right, push us in a good direction to really like what we want to do. But then also, doing Philly Theater Week, doing Scratch Night, and inviting people in the community to come see it, and being very honest that we wanted feedback. We've always been like, to people who were in certain productions of it or readings of it, sending them questions and being like, if you feel like you want to respond to these questions, we want all this feedback. So we definitely had a constant flow of understanding people's reaction to it, which I think also kept us really continuing to work on it through all this last 2 years.
For sure, yeah, I think so. The showing to me that had like the most impact was probably the Closure Likes Honey, a semi-staged reading that we did for Philly Theater Week. Mm-hmm. And so it was super cool because we were able to offer free tickets to it as just like a one-night event and see the whole script in progress for an audience, which was super.
And
super
I was
helpful.
not in it, so it was really cool to be on the other side.
Yeah, so Hannah just got to watch it, which was super cool. Oh, yeah, but I think something that's been really tricky for me as someone who hasn't led a lot of artistic development in this same way is that despite constantly asking for real feedback from people, I think people are very afraid of hurting feelings. And it's and so something that I think is really great about our group of actors and collaborators is that they're less worried about it if it's for the betterment of the work. Today, we literally had an actor say to us, we can't do this way because it doesn't make any sense. It sounds wrong. Yeah. And I was like, oh, great. Because I wasn't hearing that, and getting that very direct feedback made me go, cool. We actually have to like really investigate this. It's not an actor being like, oh, I'm a little confused by this part, but I'm going to try through it anyway. Yeah. So we're very lucky to have those collaborators and to have the people that have given us feedback.
Yeah.
So as the creators of this piece, it sounds like you had sort of like a blitz through a lot of things that maybe on a larger scale would have been dragged out a little bit longer. And what have you learned as artists now that would prepare you for the next artistic endeavor?
I definitely have spent almost all of my time now as a professional actor as a performer. Strictly a performer, and never have done anything on the other side of the table. I mean, I've wrote and written plays and stuff like that, but I have not really, I sat in and helped cast the show, write the show, do the music for the show, and the marketing for the show. Shamus and I have done all of that through the last 2 years, and for me, it was kind of like, oh, wow, the other side of the table does so much. Mm-hmm. Producing your own stuff requires so much that I didn't really know. Taking it from here is just really understanding that just because you're in the show doesn't make you the star of the whole production. Everyone's working on this giant machine to make it work. And I think I've kind of taken a step back and really been like, what am I learning from this? I don't know.
I have learned that ego is the death of progress.
Yes.
First and foremost, I've learned to hire people that are smarter than you and let them do their job. Yeah. And then just try to offer in little things that you can like tweak for your for what you're seeing. But I think like one of the strengths of this process, because it's so condensed, is that it's literally like, all right, we're doing music. Damien takes the music, and it doesn't have to be Shamus has a little thought for every little thing. Yeah. And just letting people. Same thing for design. I think our designers are really top notch, even though some of them are new to the field or in recent graduates. But because we just let them kind of go do their thing and then show up with the design, I think we've been very pleased with what's happened so far.
Yeah. It's scary, definitely. We have such an idea of what we've always had a very specific idea of what we wanted, and sitting down with the designers, costume designer, set designer, lighting designer, and all of us just really being able to throw out ideas and all take and give from each other. And I haven't really experienced that. What happens after the designer run? Yeah. All the designers coming together, and that's what's been really wonderful because everyone's got their ideas, but when you work together, you're all on that same track.
Yeah, it's just layers and layers. It's like peeling back an onion.
Yeah.
I've also learned, so it seems to me that we picked a very ambitious to unrealistic timeline to create and premiere a musical.
Yeah.
So I think that's like, anytime I talk to anyone about this, they go, oh, sure, I'm working on a musical. We've been writing it for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And that's before they've really done much of a showing even, which is great if that's in a way you're able to work, that's the way you have to work, just based on your schedule. But I think that something that we talked a lot about with this and the next steps was that we felt like it was in an immediate response to what we were dealing with at the time. And so we wanted to give ourselves a firm timeline to have it to still be relevant to us. If it took us 5 years to develop this play, I'm going to be 35 in 5 years. I think my priorities will likely change. What I'm doing will likely change.
Yeah. And you definitely have time,
Sure.
As you're young. So this will be our final thought. What inspires you as artists to move forward? What creates a sense of urgency for you as artists? Like, what encourages you to create? What encourages you to play? What encourages you to make the choices that you make?
Yeah. So I had a major change in my artistic and professional sensibility after the death of my dog, actually. So I had a beautiful dog who died very prematurely after an accidental ingestion at just a year old, and the reality of the time restraint of existence is absolutely a motivating factor to me, as practical as that sounds. It's something that I very much think about, that if there is something that you feel passionate about sharing with the world, you should do it now, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not ready. I don't know. I think too often we consider, is this Broadway ready?
Yeah.
And I think it's the worst thing for us to do. A friend of mine once told me an anecdote about a time when she was waiting for a bus and a man asked her what she does, and she said, oh, I'm an actor. And he said, oh, why aren't you in New York? You should be on Broadway. And her response was, what do you do? And he said, he's a doctor. And her response was, well, why aren't you at Johns Hopkins? And I think that that's like probably my favorite take on all of that, right? That just because we're not working at the most public commercial level of something, it doesn't mean that you don't have the agency and the urgency to just put it up when you think it's important.
Yeah. It also doesn't mean you're not a professional.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think on the other side of that, and this may be like, whatever, I recently was diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder right in the middle of us working on this in the last 2 years, and lost a huge chunk of my memory, and we kind of had to do a little bit of a halt for a little while. And it was all of a sudden like, oh, I can't be a performer anymore, I can't talk anymore. And, God bless my neurologist. But I think it's kind of like all of a sudden trying to be a runner and run a mile with one leg. And so once I was able to like kind of come back, I was like, good God, how much time have I spent my entire life like putting off projects? Yeah. And now I'm just like, I want to do it all. And I'm going to do it all right now before, so I mean, everyone has that like near-death experience, but no, I mean, I think it really made me.
I don't think you have to minimize a near-death experience. I think that's like a very real.
Thank you. But and I think all of a sudden now, and it's sad to have that kind of experience, but yeah, I just want to take on the world artistically now, because what if you aren't able to do that anymore?
I'm also super inspired by, the group of people on this show specifically, and just the artist community that I get to be a part of. I'm very lucky in the amount I get to work and the people I get to work with, and I find them continually inspiring. Like, I go home and I think about these scenes, and I don't know, I get new ideas based on the proposals that people have made and everything else, and so I think it's really a huge part of my motivation is just wanting to do well for the people you're working with and wanting them to shine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the production is called Close Your Legs, Honey. It's a new musical, and it's presented by Philly Improv Theater, main stage at the Adrian, and it is part of Fringe Arts. So you can go to Fringe Arts in their fancy new app and add it to your schedule. Hannah, Parke, Shamus, McCarty, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about this. As we speak, you are $200 shy of your fundraising goal, and we will have that link there, and hopefully by the time you see this, they will hit that goal, and then you can just help them get way over the top.
Cast recording. That's what we're doing.
That's what they're aiming for. Yeah, so thank you so much for talking about this, and and we'll see what this blitz turns out into. If you're like me, listeners, I think you'd be excited to see this. So, Close Your Legs, Honey, a new musical. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Rep Radio continues to be inspired by our community and listeners like you. You can support our work through our fiscal sponsor, Fractured Atlas, and through our Patreon page. Visit repradio.org/donate for more. Stay tuned. You know the rest.